Hi there, this is Ken Donaldson and coming to you for another episode of Money and Love and Emotions, or that's what we're calling it this week.
And hi, I'm Holly Donaldson.
And we're happy that you're back again and to join us. And this week we're going to talk about a topic that really is much broader than just the money topic, although it certainly includes that. And the topic is boundaries. Boundaries. Where do you end and the other person begin, essentially, is what we're talking about. When we think about boundaries, the more formal definition, usually we think about property lines. Well, that's a boundary. That's how you know where your property ends and the other person's begins. But we're going to talk a little bit more about personal boundaries. And so, especially now, let's just add this caveat, boundaries are challenging for people. Holly and I both see it. I probably see it a little bit more. And one of the things I've told Holly is that, I see people oftentimes that have not been setting boundaries for years and years and years, 20 years, 30 years, only because they didn't know. Yeah. And so when you throw on top of that how challenging it can be to set boundaries, when you're setting boundaries around money, like if you're meeting somebody, starting a relationship, or starting a financial arrangements, expanding your business, how much do you share with your friends and your neighbors? And you buy the new Mercedes and they go, wow, where'd you get the money for that? So there's a lot involved in this. And one of the things I was asking Holly ahead of time, I asked her, I said, why do you think people don't set good boundaries? And she had a really great list that she rattled off.
Well, I could think of several reasons why people don't set good boundaries. For example, they might think that, the other person's going to think I'm unreasonable. I don't know if this is reasonable or not. It sort of feels like the way it should be. I don't know if I can express myself in a way that doesn't come across as angry or with bossy,
conceited.
Yeah. Right, conceited. So there's a fear about rejection as well. What if they decide this is it and this is the last straw and it's a bigger deal to them than it is to me? So there's all kinds of fears.
They might not like me.
Oh, they might not like me. Exactly.
They might talk behind my back.
Right.
They might laugh at me.
All kinds of things. Yeah.
So notice all of those are made up little stories in our head. I mean, there could be some basis of reality. You may have actually seen or heard somebody, perhaps gossiping or whatever it might be, but most of that is what's made up in the head. So we scare ourselves.
Yeah.
And in this case, we sometimes scare ourselves so much that we're fearful and therefore don't express ourselves fully.
Right.
And since our eyes look out, both of them, and they don't look in, it makes it really easy for us to be always looking at the other person and trying to read them. Will they like me? Will they accept me? Are they telling me the truth? And if you're not clear about what's really important to you, and I like to call those your core values, you may have a hard time or a more challenging time figuring out exactly what your boundaries are and expressing them.
So talk about how we began our relationship with some boundaries.
I think even if you don't, I wrote a book quite a number of years ago. It's entitled Marry Yourself First. And I had met Holly in a professional setting, and she actually bought a copy of my book. She was in a relationship at that time. And one of the chapters in the book, well, there's several chapters that actually talk about boundaries, but there's one specific chapter in which I ask or invite the reader to make a list of what I call deal makers and deal breakers. These are the absolutes in relationships. And this is more talking about romantic relationships, but it really applies to all relationships. And essentially it's a checklist. What is absolutely positively necessary? What do I have to have? And what is absolutely positively not allowed? And these are absolutes. They're not open for negotiation. Now, there's a whole big area in the middle, and those are just sort of the exploration. We'll talk about it. I can have some flexibility kinds of things. And so when Holly became a single woman, she went back to Marry Yourself First, and she pulled out her list of deal makers and deal breakers, and then
I made a new list.
You made a new list.
When I became single, yes.
Yeah.
I made a new list.
You updated your list.
Updated the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
And refined it.
Yes. It got longer.
And it got longer. And well, lo and behold, apparently I met the criteria and continue to meet the criteria. Here we are a little over 4 years later. But I began to do that long before I wrote the book, practicing that, and I found it to be very helpful. I found it even helpful when I was in an employment situation where I was making a deal maker, deal breaker list for the prospective employer. They had to meet my criteria. I was interviewing them; they weren't interviewing me. So, part of boundaries is very, very empowering. However, it may put people off. Some people who aren't accustomed to have boundaries set, and if you have a relationship and you haven't been setting boundaries and all of a sudden you do, it's not surprising to get what I call counter moves or pushback, or even some venomous, passive-aggressive kinds of responses. And I think that if that's the case, then I think you need to sort of go back and reevaluate that relationship. I mean, you're speaking your truth. Yeah, it's sort of new, but you've recent developed. This is who I really am. And
imagine if that's coming up in a money context, especially.
Oh my gosh, yes. And again, because money has an extra emotional charge, so it's really helpful to know the boundaries, know the parameters, and really what it comes down to is know yourself. That's why I entitled my book "Marry Yourself First." Know, like, and trust yourself first, and that'll make it a whole lot easier to figure out exactly who you want to know, like, and trust, and where you want to work at a place that you know, like, and trust, and friends you know, like, and trust, and
how to mean what you say what you mean, and not say it mean.
Don't say it mean. Well,
Good way to set a boundary.
I'm going to say it again. Say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. So there's 3 parts there, and we're going to leave that with you as your takeaway, and we're going to follow up with you and make sure that you've been practicing that. And as always, feel free to shoot us an email or comment on our YouTube channel, and we'd love to hear about how you're applying these things, or how you're being challenged with these things, or other issues that have to do with love and relationships and emotions and money. So
that's it for today.
That's it for today, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.